the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Well, it's been so long since I've had you on the show, buddy.
It has.
You know,
I can't remember the last time.
I can. You were in person. It feels weird to not have you in person here.
Yeah, but that was March then. Yeah, holy cow. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun.
That was a blast. And you got to meet my little guy. Like, you're the only person to actually see his face because I don't post his pictures anywhere.
Right. Yep.
Right.
He's a spitting image of you, right down to the goatee and everything, too. It's a mini James.
Well, good morning to Aaron. Good morning to Reggie. Good morning to Eric. Eric says morning chaps. I guess he's been hanging out with Javad for way too long because he started to use British lingo.
Javad's on vacation this week, so I've been pulling double duty. So just before this, I was on the Jarek show with Eric, filling in for Javad because Javad's got little feet, so the shoes were a little uncomfortable to fit into them. So. But
this is going to get replayed at some point to Javad, and he's going to be like, little feet. I'll show you.
Oh, I know. He knows.
He knows. Yeah. So, hey, everyone. Happy Friday, June 17th. Mr. McQuiggan and I came together today for a little cyber trivia, but also, in case you guys haven't noticed, there's kind of a consolidation going on within the economy. And that's translating to cybersecurity. And we wanted to have a real honest type of conversation. We can always talk about, technology and culture and awareness, and those are very important topics. But there's also one that I think is critically as important, which is one, job security. Number two is how do you start planning ahead for what's looking to be a very rough several years at minimum, right? From a financial perspective. Last week, right before RSA, OneTrust and several other companies all kind of announced layoffs. We're watching corporations announce layoffs. If you're in a leadership position and you're in security, you ought to start talking to your CFO. What are our budget adjustments going to look like for technology over the next several years? What are we readjusting revenue for? If you're in security or trying to break into security, that definitely has some stuff there as well. So it's worth talking about it. Mr. McQuiggan, what are your thoughts on just how do you keep, kind of find that stability in uncertain financial times, especially within, the realm of cyber?
Well, first of all, it's good to be back on the show and always a pleasure to chat with you, James. Earlier, as I said, I did the podcast with Eric, and one of the articles that we talked about was you've got cybersecurity practitioners, professionals that are out there, and there's about 45% of them that want to get out of the industry because of burnout. And so when we start looking at the fact that we've got a job shortage in our industry, you've got people that want to leave because they're getting burned out for whatever reason. And then we've got the issues that are going on with the economy, with inflation, possible recession, all that other stuff that's going to pull back. We've already seen 70,000. I think I just saw a stat this morning, 75,000 people in cybersecurity laid off over the last several weeks with all these organizations, or 7,500. Either way,
7,500. It's 7,500.
Okay.
Yes.
A lot of people.
It's not 75,000. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah,
75,000 would be horrendous. But yeah, 7,500.
Yeah. So you've got people being laid off. You've got people that want to get out of the industry, and then we already have the shortage. So it's coming together where it's really, really bad. And I think, the cyber criminals that are out there are looking at this with organizations going, they got no defenses. They've, you think about the analogy of a castle, you don't, granted, everything used to be on-prem, you could put your arms around it, but, now you're losing all your guards on the castle. You're losing all your monitoring, all the sentry guards. They're going to be sitting there looking at ways to, it's going to be easier to attack. They're not going to have the resources. And so, I think, when you've got organizations that are going to start looking at their resources and looking at ways to cut back because of finances, and got to keep the shareholders happy if you're a publicly traded company. I have a feeling that we're going to have even more security people get burned out because they're getting more and more work put upon them because try to keep their organization secure.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a ton of very, very good points. I think, let me come at this from a CISO perspective, right? For a sec. I've been having these conversations with our upper management for the last several weeks of how is this going to change our, HR headcount or our budgeting, now granted, I'm not going to go into too much detail of that discussion because at the end of the day, there is an NDA in place, but I will say that these are very, very valid discussion. And even among my peers, when I speak to other CISOs in the industry, now it's become a real concern because you're starting to hear from companies that if they had, and I think there was a statistic I saw this morning getting ready for today's episode. I think it was what's it called? Glassdoor, I think, was saying that they've seen a 60% reduction in job postings, like postings that were up maybe pre kind of the last 3 weeks. Some of those jobs have gone away where they've just said we've eliminated the job rec altogether.
Yeah. And that's usually the first thing to go in those kind of things. Yeah.
Right. First thing you do is you don't want to hire anyone new. And then the next thing is where do you start cutting? And I think this is right. But you know what? I actually don't think you cut training budgets. I think that anyone who cuts training budgets in times like these is you talked about burnout, right? Yeah. You talked about burnout. Number one reason for burnout is because there's no further development for individuals. Right?
I agree.
So I think the last thing I would ever cut is training budget. I would want to train my people to wear more hats.
Right.
Because if I can't hire anyone, I don't want to burn out my people. So I'm going to start teaching them other things. I'm going to start investing in getting them off site for a few days or having them go get some more continued education so they can learn other skills.
And we bring up the topic of training, and that's always a key item. Places that I've worked where organizations were cutting back and, the parties went, all the extra fun stuff went, and training went. And they really scaled back on all the training. That's why I brought that up. But sometimes training doesn't always have to be, and this was because of what came out of that, doesn't always have to be going off and doing the $5,000, $7,000 week-long course. It could be something where, okay, you're going to get a day off from work and and here's a collection of books, here's some ways to improve your skills. We're going to sign you up for, a cyber range and you can go work on your pen testing skills, but even doing that is a lot better than just going, oh, sorry, don't have the budget for training and just saying, don't worry about doing any training, but have at least come up with other ways to get your workforce trained and educated, whether it's, giving them specific time of the day or the week or whatever to focus on continuing to educate themselves, whether it's reading, listening to an audiobook, whether it's the cyber ranges, whether it's, doing your own research or whatever it is to kind of advance it. But if you can do more of that continuing education for your current users or your current security practitioners, that's going to go a long way because then they feel that appreciated. Because I think that's one of the reasons that 45% of them are saying we're out of here is because they're getting burned out. They don't feel appreciated. And it's the culture of the work environment that they're in.
Yeah. And I think, you bring up some really great points. And again, this goes to leadership. So when
yes,
one of the big things I always talk about when I'm trying to, onboard someone and talk to them about the company is, who our leadership is, who our investors are, who are back, because that's part of the culture, right? Those are the kind of people who, when you're in a position like this and you've got a board meeting, right, or you're scaling back, you're talking about either scaling back or scaling down or up or whatever the case may be. Those are the kind of people who are going to sit in the room and they're really going to be the ones that are going to say, well, we can't cut training because we don't want untrained people, right? That kind of defeats the purpose. Right. We do want to, we don't want to have untrained people, but we do want to have cross training skills. So if my training budget was 10,000, maybe we'll make it 5,000,
right?
But maybe we'll invest in cross training. So we'll start to get employees to learn about different lines of business within the company so that people can wear multiple hats. You avoid burnout that way, right? One big thing I do, right? And I've always done as a security leader is switch people up in their roles every 4 or 5 months.
Yep.
Right. Give them a 30-day break to go do something different, breathe fresh air, meet new faces, shake new hands, right? Learn something new, learn business, not just security, right? So that they can apply security to that business.
Right. And there's a second point to that. That way you don't get people set in that one role and figuring out ways that they can, bypass systems. And, I remember it being from my CISSP study days, where you want to move people around as one of the techniques. So that way you don't have people bypassing security parameters, and it doesn't keep people comfortable in their roles, because they're going to get bounced around.
Yeah. Eric gives the famous Henry Ford quote, right? The only thing worse than training your employees and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. Yeah, and I think in times like these, anyone who's even considering cutting back on training is something different. I also think that our HR cost has been overinflated in security, right? Where you've had people who, in some entry level roles, some companies were paying close to six figures for some entry level jobs. I think that was unsustainable. I think we're going to start to see that correction, right? And this kind of goes to the conversations, last week, I think, or 2 weeks ago, you were on with Chris and Renee over on CISO Thursdays, right? Breaking into cybersecurity. But that kind of goes into some of the discussions we've been having on there for 2-3 years, right? Which is the whole thing of, you go to this boot camp and they tell you, yeah, you can start off making 80 grand a year. And you're like, that's not really realistic. Somehow the market got up there, right? But now a lot of those people are going to find themselves on the sidelines, and they're really going to get priced back in at what I think would be the acceptable market rate for those entry-level positions.
I had a colleague of mine who went through one of those. It was like a 6-month or 8-week course, and basically learned all about the aspects of cybersecurity. Probably it was several months. And the whole notion of, when you get out, you'll be able to get a job because you've got the certificate, you'll be good to go. And he got out, and the best thing you could muster was a help desk position, fixing computers. And that took several months after he graduated, after he finished the course. And I think that's what a lot of folks end up running into, is they get out into the workforce, they're thinking, okay, great, I've got this degree, or I got the certification, I should be able to get a job. And pretty well everybody else has already got those as well. And so you kind of have to rely on that next thing of, hopefully somebody, or referrals, or networking, connecting in with the community and meeting folks. And because trying to get your resume and cover letter past the automation systems that are screening them makes it a lot harder for them.
Yeah, it's, I've always been a kind of the guy who's against boot camps. I feel like I don't think boot camp really gives you, it teaches you the basics, but you still need to understand what is the concept of security and what is the mission of security. And most people get it really, really confused. And they don't quite take it all together from a perspective of what is security in relations to the business. And one of my favorite Air Force vets, and really a great all-around guy, Mr. Vince Romney, says that the CISO CFO partnership is even more relevant in times of downturn. Much easier to stay aligned if you've already developed that relationship. Much harder if you've not fostered that prior to an economic downturn. And yeah, you nailed it on the head. That relationship with your CFO, that maybe a lot of CISOs don't see value in it. I talk to our CFO almost daily. Right? Like daily, even if it's just a little line of just, hey, what's happening?
Right.
Yeah. Building that relationship is so important, because they're the person who's going to tell you, yeah, we're definitely meeting, especially if you're second line, which most CISOs are second line. They're not in those first line business conversations, right? So if you're second line, that CFO, he's going to be able to give you some of the conversations around that intel that you desperately need in order to really stave off any shortcomings on your team and whatnot. And I think that's really just critically as important.
Yep.
So Mr. McQuiggan, let me ask you this. You look at these economic times, you look at, your experience in the workforce. What are some of the best practices for you around, kind of keeping your head low and really driving towards maintaining your position right now? What are some of your tips to people today?
Take out the competition. No, I'm kidding. No,
malware installed on your device. You are now gone.
Yeah, right. Oh, look, they discovered this material on your computer that's illegal. Oh, darn. Sorry. No.
You want to do the office. You want to put drugs in Toby's cabinet and then call the cops.
Yeah. Keeping your head down and just going, there's been several rules that I've learned, or several best practices that I've learned over the years. And one of them is, the closest you are to the customer, the more secure your job is, because you're constantly working with the customer. What I'm doing now with the role that I have, well, there's several roles. I mean, the security awareness advocate with KnowBe4, college professor, doing that as the evening side hustle. When you can be as close to the customer, that's one thing, but being productive, delivering results, delivering products, so we've got, KnowBe4, we got our own security podcast, Security Mastermind. So producing that is, getting that helps get the word out that way. Just, I think a lot of it is Mr. Crone's response. I'm going with the Tanya Harding approach. Yeah. Okay. Well, look out, Eric. No. But just being able to, stay productive. And even then you can be productive and still get laid off. It's just going to be, you want to make yourself valuable to the organization. So delivering content for what we're doing, delivering content, information, thought leadership, ways to help the organization that, when you're in the organization, whether you're working in a SOC or you're working product security or doing vulnerability assessments, constantly be evolving and growing as well yourself, so that keep making yourself more valuable for the organization. So, they want to keep you around. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. Even cross-training yourself and engaging with other lines of business could be really advantageous. Aaron has a great comment here. What is going to be interesting is malicious actors will craft ways to take advantage of these budget issues we will face. Companies need to start prioritizing what is most important and focus on those things. For most companies, Aaron, and I think at least in publicly traded companies, it's going to be their fiduciary responsibility to their investors and shareholders, right? That's I think where you're going to see the biggest priorities being made. My curiosity, right, and Mr. McQuiggan and I were talking about it as we were prepping for this show, is, remember earlier, was it last year or was it? Yeah, it was last year where they had the White House Summit on Cybersecurity with Jamie Dimon and all these different, CEOs that were in the room with the president at the time, all pledging 20 billion, 30 billion, 15 billion. Google, I think, pledged 40 billion over 5 years to invest in cybersecurity. Now with the economic downturn, are those pledges that mean nothing? They're really just a vague pledge to the president, like, hey, we take cyber seriously, right? How many of those are going to get cut?
Yeah, I mean, it's a pledge. First of all, and that was based on what was the current situation at that point in time, that we can do this over the next 10 years, but we never know what's around the corner. And so coming around the corner, we're dealing with the inflation, possible recession. And now that changes everything. So it's like, I know we pledged it, but there's no contract. There's nothing.
I wonder if they're going to give the Amber Heard line over pledging and donating, right?
Okay.
Like,
yeah. Stay off the bed. A pledge is, something you want to do and you're going to strive to do, but they may not do 40 billion. Google might do 10 billion or 5 billion,
or they may do nothing, because at the end of the day, of the day, would you rather take away that pledge and go, well, it's a politician, right? They're not going to be around for much longer. And so we're just going to, walk back on our pledge. It's not like there's really any real consequences to it, because we want to keep our workforce, or we want to invest in maintaining our growth strategy rather than, go on this adventure.
Right. But if you've got organizations that are feeling the pinch with regards to the economy and everything going on, and they have to start scaling back things, and cybersecurity becomes one of those, just like what Aaron was saying before, you're going to have cyber criminals that are going to be like, great, you got all these organizations that don't have all the resources they used to have. So, okay, good. Now we're going to ratchet up the attacks and see if we can get in. And
I actually disagree with that approach. I think that the CISOs are going to start prioritizing, you're going to start spending based on your highest risk parameters, right? And you're going to secure your weakest point, and that's where you're going to maintain your investment. I think all the nice to have R&D projects or proof of concept projects will go away. I think if you're a startup in security today and you were hoping that you'd be able to go to, some of the big Fortune 100s and be able to work out a POC to get a proof of concept for your product, or be able to get some time on the schedule, I think that's going to be very difficult to do over the next several years, because there will be layoffs. I think that's inevitable, right? I think there's going to be some nice to have tools that are going to go away upon renewal, right? And then there's going to be the big companies, right? The big names in the industry that are going to be able to really not increase their pricing, but maintain their pricing, or even add services, and say, hey, we'll give you this solution that you don't have from us, but you have from someone else, but we'll give it to you at half the cost, to really rope them in and build that loyalty. The companies with the cash flow, right, are the ones that are really going to win this one. The ones that are really operating from a cash flow perspective will be the ones that always win these long-term battles. And I think, I think we're going to see a lot of consolidation in the industry. I wouldn't want to be a startup in the first year of business right now in Series A or B. Wouldn't want to be that company today. Wouldn't want to be those founders, especially if you're, not even generating revenue yet, because I think it's going to be really, really difficult to get investors. Cybersecurity stocks are down 40%.
Saw that this morning in the Wall Street Journal. Yep.
Right. So startup fintech stocks are down 70-80%. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Is the market determines the risk appetite of investors. It's the number one indicator. It's kind of like, going on Shodan and searching for stuff. You find data there. It's your indicator of what threat actors are going after, right? We kind of see a trend. We know the trendiness of what we're doing. And I think the same applies here. I think the trendiness of what's going on in security today is going to be very, very challenging. And I think if you're in a position today, you want to really hold on, number one. And I think number two is you definitely want to build rapport across the org, so that the value that you bring is maintained, and people definitely see that as being something very, very positive for the organization.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with that. I think for the next couple of years, it's going to be a little tight, belt tightening with what's going to be going on. But, a year ago, we probably thought, hey, we're coming out of the pandemic, and we're getting to go back and do things, and all is good. And, here we are.
We did do something. You guys were at RSA. A lot of people were at RSA last week, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people came back with some swag, namely COVID. Not me. Not me. I got my negative test. I'm good. But I knew several folks that ended up coming away, and Gartner as well was last week. But so it'll be interesting to see. I think 2026 should be good, because that's when the FIFA World Cup's here in Mexico, Canada, and the US. So.
Yeah, by then we'll have hopefully there'll be no social distancing for that. What an economy booster that would be, right? I know Atlanta's a host city, right?
Miami, New York, Philly,
Boston, Dallas.
Yep. All the big cities that have big giant football stadiums.
Yeah, Los Angeles, San Francisco.
Yep. Monterey, Mexico City, Vancouver, Toronto. Yeah. There's another one. Guadalupe, I think, in Mexico.
Monterey.
Yeah. So
it's really exciting. All right, folks, we've got a few minutes left. Do we want to do one trivia question? And then I'll do all the rest on the website. Did you come up with one, Mr. McQuiggan? Do you have a question for the crowd, or should I shoot from my list?
Go from your list, because I had one, but now I can't remember it.
All right. So for those who don't know, we're doing cyber trivia. Comment. I've got an awesome swag here. We've got some Know Before swag. We definitely have a ton of CyberHub Podcast swag that we'll be sending your way. So it's not just one person a winner. You get a good question. I like your answer. It's really cool. So let me ask you this, fans, listeners, practitioners, security gang. Here we go. Here's a question. It's open-ended, so there's no yes or no. There's no right or wrong. It's just the answer that maybe Mr. McQuiggan and I like the most. All right. When thinking of cybersecurity culture, What is the number one key to success in developing a cybersecurity culture? Put that in the comments. Eric Krohn can't answer. Whatever Eric Krohn answers, whoever copies and pastes it wins.
You know, who was it? Somebody earlier. I got to give a shout out to them because, Reggie. Reggie goes, I need that dad joke sign in my life. My daughters gave me this for Christmas, along with my own bottle of Dadville. It's peanut M&Ms. And my case of more emergency dad jokes. So I just want everybody to know that unfortunately my wife left me because I'm really insecure. Oh no, wait, she's back. She was just at the grocery store. Yeah. And whoever stole my copy of Microsoft Office, I will find you. I have a certain set of skills. You have my word.
I will find you.
Yeah, right.
I will kill you.
So I also uploaded my new Cyber Dad joke and Cyber story today too. It's you can see it on YouTube or LinkedIn.
Those are good ones. Yeah. Callie says buy-in. Reggie says open-mindedness, and Eric's just face palming.
No, he's face palming because of the dad jokes.
I know, but I was gonna make that. What's the best way to create cyber culture? And Eric wins yet again. Who do you give it to in your opinion? Thomas, Callie, or Reggie? What answer do you like?
Repeat the question again. Oh, we got a good one from Aaron. Repeat the question.
To me, what's the number one way to build cybersecurity culture?
Oh, okay.
To me, we always hear a top-down approach, so we have to get to the board of directors, shareholders, C-suite to understand what that means in business terms. Once they bought in, then building the culture becomes possible.
You know,
we've got a LOL.
I've got to look at it as a tie between what Nick said and what Callie said. Buy-in and collaboration, because if you're going to build a security culture, it's going to take everybody in the organization to implement it. You know, security awareness is just that first step. It's that foundation aspect. When you start getting the culture is the behaviors, you know, the social cues, the interactions that you have with your users with regards to security and the behaviors that go along with it. So they've got to have buy-in, and they've got to collaborate with you. You've got to be able to communicate it with them. They got to be able to communicate back. You've got to have their buy-in because it's their attitudes, their behaviors. They got to be able to understand it. Coming in there, there's the whole 7 dimensions of security culture that go in there as well: attitudes, behavior, cognition, communication, I think collaboration, and I'm skipping out on the others right now. But in my world, a breach. Yeah, well, there you go.
I've got 3 winners. So Nick, buddy, you got some swag. Aaron, you've got swag coming your way. Callie, you've got swag coming your way. Cool. I will message y'all on LinkedIn if that's okay. We'll just need a shipping address and an awesome package with some really cool stuff, courtesy of Know Before. And here, the group at CyberHub Podcast coming your way. So really appreciate it. Mr. McQuiggan, any final words this Friday before we sign off and tell everyone wish everyone a great weekend?
Well, wish everybody a great weekend, but also wish all the dads out there a happy Father's Day, especially to you, James. Your first year. Well, I know it's not.
You know, my first year with my son, right? Which means a whole lot, because now if I want to go hunting on Father's Day, my daughter, who would look at me and be like, "No way, dude." My son will probably look at me and be like, "You're telling me guns, beer, cigars, and deer? Oh my god,
this would be great."
Right, it'll be awesome.
Oh no, yeah, no doubt about that. Certainly all right, here we go. So I mentioned it before. There it is. I dropped in my Cyber Dad joke of the week is in the chat. So folks can go check it out and do the face palm like Eric. I think addition of dad jokes. You know, Nick, that's a good question. I hadn't planned on it, and I've got a busy weekend, but Maybe I can see if I can dig some up. The video today was based off of cryptocurrency, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see. I'll have to drop something out. Fam taking me to see the new Jurassic Park for Father's Day. Cool. But
I want to go fishing or hunting. Is what I want to do. I need to get some animal blood on me somewhere.
I'll be spending it with my dad. One of my daughters is here. My other one is now working full time up in another state, so she won't be around, which is a bummer, but it's all good. She's off making a living, being that adult that she is. You raised an awesome family, Mr. McQuiggan. Thanks,
so I'm always grateful for you when you're coming on the show. You'll be back again, not next week, week after next.
Yep.
We'll be doing another one. Next week, Eric Crone will be joining me. We'll be talking about cyber certifications. That's 11 a.m. next week. Don't go. Don't miss out. That's it for us here. Happy Friday. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Nick, Callie, and Aaron, congratulations. You won some swag. We're going to be hitting you up here later today for your information so we can ship it right to you, courtesy of KnowBe4. Everyone, see you Monday for the Cyber News, 9 a.m. Eastern, right here, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, your favorite podcast listening platform, Twitter, Twitch. We're back on Twitter because Elon Musk is buying Twitter. Oh, my God.
I thought it fell through.
Oh, no. Did you not watch the Project Veritas drop yesterday? He did a town hall with Twitter employees, and someone leaked all the Slack chat of all the employees dissing Elon Musk. And I'm like, if I'm Elon Musk, I'm looking at HR and I'm like, go through that Slack chat. Fired. And with that, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.